How did a man rise from a military officer to become one of the most feared dictators in South American history? Augusto Pinochet was a controversial dictator of the 20th century. He seized power through a bloody coup, overthrowing democracy and plunging Chile into 17 years of brutal dictatorship. Under Pinochet's reign, the Chilean parliament was suspended, all elections were banned, and the activities of political parties were declared illegal. His regime implemented ruthless measures of repression, including widespread arrests and torture, aiming to crush any opposition resistance. Thousands of people mysteriously disappeared during this period. Despite global condemnation, Pinochet retained support from a segment of the Chilean population, and he continued to live without facing trial, despite efforts both domestically and internationally to prosecute him for his past actions. Join us as we delve into the dark legacy of Augusto Pinochet, the dictator who changed Chile forever, and uncover the chilling truths that still haunt the nation. Coup and betrayal. Augusto Pinochet was born on November 25, 1915, in Valparaiso, Chile, into an upper-middle-class family as the eldest of 6 siblings. His ambitious mother encouraged him to apply to military school. Initially frail in appearance, Pinochet faced multiple rejections, which was a humiliating experience that deeply scarred him. This led him to obsessively train to build a strong physique. At the age of 18, Pinochet joined the military and quickly rose through the ranks. By the early 1970s, he had become a key commander in Santiago, the capital of Chile, at a time when President Salvador Allende was steering Chile towards socialism. In June 1973, after Allende had been in power for 3 years, a coup plot became apparent but was quashed. Chilean society was in turmoil with constant political changes, severe economic decline, and rampant inflation. 2 months later, Allende, trusting in Pinochet's loyalty and adherence to the law, appointed him as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. This decision would later be seen as a grave mistake by Allende. Pinochet quickly turned against Allende, demanding his resignation or a confrontation with the military. When Allende refused to step down, the Chilean military under Pinochet's leadership attacked the presidential palace, and Allende died in the ensuing conflict. Reports suggest he was either killed or committed suicide. Years later, it was revealed that the CIA actively destabilized Allende's government. Domestic violence. The true extent of Pinochet's role in the overthrow of President Allende remains contentious. Some sources claim Pinochet only decided to join the coup at the last minute, while he himself asserted he orchestrated the entire event. Regardless, after the coup, Pinochet became one of the 4 ruling figures in Chile and declared himself president in 1974. Following the coup, Chile experienced a dark period with civil liberties curtailed, leftist parties suppressed, and the powers of labor unions greatly diminished. Pinochet consolidated all power in his hands. During this time, bodies of individuals suspected of being leftists were found floating in the Mapocho River in Santiago, and mass graves containing unidentified corpses were discovered. Pinochet became a terror in Chile, with secret police forces always ready to act. However, it wasn't until 1991, when investigations into Pinochet's violent policies began, that the atrocities committed during his dictatorship were fully exposed. Estimates indicate around 3,000 people were killed or disappeared, tens of thousands were tortured, and many others were forced to either leave the country or live in fear. Opening the economy. In 1978, Augusto Pinochet received the support of 75% of participants in a nationwide referendum described as legitimate. By 1980, a new constitution was passed, and in 1981, Pinochet was sworn in as president for an extended 8-year term. Despite tight political control, Pinochet was relatively liberal in economic policies. He promoted the implementation of free market policies, removal of subsidies and price controls, reduction of tariffs, and established mechanisms to attract foreign investment. These policies helped reduce inflation rates and brought prosperity to businesses and skilled laborers. But in the 1980s, Pinochet began to face many difficulties due to high unemployment rates. The economic crisis in 1981 caused unrest among the people. This led to street riots in Santiago to protest against Pinochet's economic management policies and government. Holding on to power. In the 1980s, Chile, under the leadership of Pinochet, became a secret ally of the UK in the conflict with Argentina. Despite opposition from the Labour Party, then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher decided to lift the ban on arms exports to Chile. In the following years, Pinochet gradually gained international acceptance. He also made some concessions, moving towards accepting democracy in his country. Pinochet organized an election in October 1988 for the people of Chile to support or oppose him. Although he lost this election, he did not immediately transfer power, but continued to hold a leadership position for the next 2 years. Even after leaving the presidency, Pinochet remained an important figure in the Chilean military for another 7 years, despite opposition from opposing political forces. He also became a lifelong senator in Chile's democratic parliament. Officially arrested. Perhaps Pinochet was reassured that the lifelong senator status meant lifelong immunity, ensuring his absolute safety after retirement, but he was mistaken. Although Pinochet was never prosecuted for serious crimes during his time in power, he still faced legal troubles. During a trip to the UK in 1998 for medical treatment, Pinochet was arrested, as a Spanish court had requested his extradition to stand trial for human rights violations. Despite controversy, the UK government decided to keep Pinochet under house arrest. Then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, one of his old friends, supported him. After a group of doctors certified that Pinochet was unfit to stand trial, the UK government released him and allowed him to return to Chile. Pinochet breathed a sigh of relief once again. In March 2000, after 18 months in exile, Pinochet returned to Chile, where he was warmly welcomed by his supporters, mostly from the military. But just a few weeks after his return, a court in Santiago revoked Pinochet's immunity. Legal actions regarding the fate of this controversial figure erupted both domestically and internationally. In March 2005, the Chilean Supreme Court overturned a lower court's ruling, affirming that Pinochet could be prosecuted for his role in Operation Condor, a coordinated campaign by the governments of 6 South American countries to pursue and assassinate political opponents in the 1970s. In addition to political troubles, Pinochet was also accused of corruption and embezzling $27 million hidden in foreign bank accounts. Along with his son, he was also suspected of involvement in illegal cocaine trafficking. However, despite these serious and highly controversial allegations, Pinochet never had to face a court for his actions. He passed away at the age of 91, leaving behind an unresolved past.